Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to review a tool that I recently bought. This is the Grizzly 4003G lathe. The G stands for gunsmith, but as far as I can tell there are no features on here that apply specifically to gunsmithing. It's just sort of a higher precision, higher quality model of the 4003. So this is what I upgraded from. Harbor Freight 7x10 mini lathe, and despite its shortcomings, hardy har, it actually performs pretty well. I made plenty of good parts with it for hobby and profit, so it was good, but definitely limited in the length case. So this 4003G is 12x36, meaning that it can turn a 12-inch diameter part over the ways, and the part can be 36 inches between centers, so it's plenty big enough for what I do. So let's move in and I'll show you some of the features. One of the differences between the 4003 and the 4003G is that the spindle is a little bit bigger on the 4003G. It has a D1-5 cam lock, which is a high quality way of mounting the chuck to the spindle. There's actually like 5 pegs that fit into the spindle. And then by turning these, it has a cam-shaped lobe that locks down on the pins. So I'm really happy with the chuck. It's quite beefy. I haven't really checked it for a TIR, but for the kind of work that I do, it's not too critical. Both lathes, the 4003 and the 4003G, come with this really nice Alora style tool post, which is really great. You can have these tool holders already set up. This one has a cutoff tool in it. In fact, this one's not even meant to hold a cutoff tool, but it actually works pretty well. And then you can have another one set up with a boring bar and all kinds of different tools. But the really nice thing about this is that you can change the tool height with a dial. So if I put this in here and turn this knurled screw here, it moves the tool up and down. So it's very easy to get this over to a center point, adjust the tool up and down with this, and then pull the lever and it's all locked down very tight. Really nice tool holder. And to change the angle of the tool holder, you just need a big wrench. Loosen this and you can spin this around very easily. So definitely get that. The four-way tool post holder, like on the 7x10 lathe, is really, I mean, it's good if you're using tools that always have the same height, like those pre-made carbide tools. But even then, it's still kind of a pain. So definitely get this kind of tool holder. Grizzly shipped the lathe very quickly, within just a day or two of me ordering it. And FedEx normally would have only taken a few days to deliver it. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area and it was shipped from Washington State. But there was a little bit of a shipping snafu, so it took a few extra days, but not a really big deal. I paid the extra $35 or whatever it was for liftgate service. So FedEx brought the crate down to ground level, and the driver was really nice and rolled it all the way back to my shop in the back of the property. It's quite a long way down the driveway. The lathe weighs just over 1,000 pounds. And I was concerned, it doesn't come on the stand. The stand is shipped separately from the lathe itself, and I was worried about how that was going to work out. But actually it was easier than I thought. I just used a standard winch or come-along and supported it by a few of the joists, the ceiling joists, and was able to just winch the lathe up pretty easily and set it back down onto the stands. The stands are pretty low-quality castings. There's a lot of rough surface and the paint job isn't so good, but they're very sturdy. There's a lot of metal there, and so the lathe is quite securely mounted to them. The lathe has kind of an unusual electrical system. It has this emergency lockout which you turn to get the power on, and then it also has an additional button that sort of opens another or closes another relay in there. And then the lathe has a forward and reversing switch on the carriage, which is actually pretty nice. So down to go forward and up to go in reverse. And then when you're done using the lathe for the day, the only way to make it go off is to press the emergency reset, and that shuts off the whole system. The levers all move pretty smoothly. I'm pretty happy with how easy it is to move all these levers. The only one that doesn't move all that well is the selector that changes between the lead screw and the drive screw, or the drive shaft that powers the power cross feed. So this one's a little stiff, but you know, I hardly ever shift that one. And the gear changes down here, you know, reasonably good. Maybe not as good as they could be, but they work. The only modification I've made to the lathe is to add LED lighting to the work light here. This was originally a 24-volt halogen light, and it was bright all right, but very yellow and very hot. I mean, if the light is close in and you're putting your hands in here, it's almost like putting your hands in a toaster. So what I did was I added a 12-volt power supply to the electrical box on this thing, and then ran the 12 volts up to here and put a pre-made LED replacement light for halogen lighting. So it's a 12-volt LED light. And it's pretty nice. I mean, it's almost as bright as the original, I would say. And it's totally cool. You can keep your hand here without melting it. Speaking of electrics, the electrical box on this thing is quite complicated, much more so than I would have imagined. The circuitry involves a 24-volt subsystem which drives some of the relays, and then there's also multiple interrupters for the motor control, so that it has like this reset system in addition to the forward-reverse switch on the carriage. Overall, really well done. I'm actually kind of surprised at how much care was put into it. The hand wheels all respond very well. I know that the backlash in a hand wheel doesn't really indicate the machine's precision, but it's still very nice just from sort of an operator's standpoint. So if I turn this to 0, there's really only about 4 divisions of play in this one. And on the compound, you know, it's even less. It's only about 1.5 divisions of free play on the compound. Very nice. And the carriage only has about 3 divisions of play on this one. So pretty nice responsive stuff. And like you say, the levers all work pretty smoothly. So far, the only problem I've had with this is that when it was shipped to me, the thread counter dial didn't work because it had the wrong number of teeth on the gear here. So it was shipped to me with a 15-tooth gear on the thread counter dial. And so I was testing out thread chasing, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. I was very careful to always engage on the number and everything, and it wasn't working. And so finally I took the gear out and counted it, and it had 15 teeth, and the lead screw here is, I think, 8 threads per inch. So I knew that was wrong, and I called up Grizzly, and they said that the 15-tooth gear is actually for metric lathes. So it makes sense. They just got mixed up at the factory and put the metrically sized gear on here. So they sent me a 16-tooth gear, and now the thread chasing dial works just fine. The tailstock's also very easy to use. It's got a nice big lever here for locking it down. And one of the features on the gunsmith lathe version is it has this 1/2-inch socket here. I guess for really high repeatability, you want to use a torque wrench to lock this down. I've never heard of that before, but I guess that's a technique that gunsmiths use. So that's kind of nice. And then, of course, to lock the quill. I think it has a pretty long throw, too. Here, I'll look this up. It's about a 3 or 4-inch long travel on the quill here. Let's see how much we get. Yeah, it's close to 4 inches, actually, on the travel. It's quite nice. And this is the chuck that it came with, which is kind of small, but it's actually pretty easy to use. It's, again, I didn't check it for run out or anything, but it operates as smoothly as any Jacobs chuck, so I'm just going to keep using it. I like that. The spindle bore is 1 5/8, which is really nice, and it's ever so slightly larger than the regular 4003 lathe. So this is great because you can get like a 1.5-inch piece of stock and just feed it all the way through the spindle, which is something that I really wanted to do when I had that small 7x10 lathe, and well, it just wasn't going to happen with that one. The carriage can be moved under power by one of 2 ways, either through the lead screw or through this drive shaft arrangement through the clutch here. And there's a table on the side of the lathe that tells you what speeds you can get. It also has a power cross feed, so by engaging the clutch into the cross feed direction, it can power that in and out. Surprisingly, Grizzly doesn't list in their catalog which lathes have a power cross feed and which don't. I mean, some of the really cheap lathes don't have a power cross feed, but pretty much everything above $2,000 or something, or $1,500 have power cross feeds. Also, I should mention that the protractor on the compound is actually pretty good. It was completely missing on the 7x10 lathe, and so setting angles on that one was sometimes a bit of a hassle. But this one's actually very clearly written and easy to read. I would say you could easily get half-degree accuracy with that protractor. All right, well, let's make some chips. Okay, I'm just going to turn an aluminum collar, which is something that, I don't know, comes up fairly often, relatively easy operation. So chuck this thing up here. And I don't think, actually, let me center my tool. I don't think I'm even going to use the power cross feed today, just to show you what you can do even with hand feeding. All right. And that's how easy adjusting tool height is. I really like that feature. One thing I wouldn't mind having that the lathe doesn't have is a carriage lock. I know it has this, there's a hex, a socket head screw that'll tighten the carriage down, but it would be nice to have a real lever, a handle that actually does it a little more easily. All right, here we go. Let me speed that up here too. It's better. Very smooth, very easy to use. I'll take a pretty heavy cut on this one. So it's pretty easy to get a nice finish. And I'm not even going to bother center drilling it. Of course I should. The lathe has a lot of power. I haven't really pushed it really hard yet, but it really doesn't slow down much for anything. And there we have it. Look at how nice the finish is on the cutoff wheel, on the cutoff tool side, as well as the actual turned side. I mean, it's really nice. I had so many problems with using cutoff tools or parting tools on that small lathe. With this one, it's just a total joy. There's another trick I picked up from another YouTuber that goes by Mr. Pete222. And actually, I'll pull this out and show the camera here. The tip of the cutoff tool is purposefully slanted like this. So if you want to save the part that you're cutting off, if you grind the tool to look like this, as the parting tool cuts off, it will leave the nib of material on the stock. So you can see we've got a little nib of material here on the stock, and the part that was cut off will be clean because that part of the tool protruded through first. That little tip has saved me a lot of time too. Now you can just come in here with a deburring tool or a countersink and just clean that up, and hey, that's a finished part. So I stepped up the RPM and I'm using a larger diameter piece of steel, and it's cutting pretty well now. I'll show you. Not bad. I'm pretty happy with that surface finish. It's still not perfect, but that's pretty good. Not bad. So overall, I'm really happy with this. For $3,000 plus 300 shipping, it's an absolute great deal. I would buy it again in a heartbeat. So good luck. I hope this was helpful. See you next time.